Satoru is a lonely, ugly loser who lived as a miserable salary man without a girlfriend. After being isekai'd by getting stabbed, he is reborn as a slime in a different world, where he becomes the strongest, meets all kinds of monster girls. But before that, he was living a very boring life, and even though he had a decent job, no girl wanted a loser like him. He meets Tamura, who introduces him to his girlfriend, and as they walk together, heading to a restaurant, an angry dude suddenly comes running towards them with a dagger, aiming to stab Tamura. However, Makami quickly pushes his friend away from harm's way, but ends up getting stabbed instead. He falls to the ground in pain, and suddenly begins to hear an unknown voice in his head, telling him about the several new abilities he is acquiring, just as he thinks about the several pains he is feeling. Makami says his final words to Tamura as he slowly dies and painfully thinks about how he never got to develop plot with any girl throughout his 37 years of living. However, he reasons that if he ever gets reborn, he will show no mercy, but will screw any girl he comes across. As Makami thinks about this, the leveling system, Great Sage activates a new skill called Predator, and he soon enters Nirvana. However, he wakes up in an unknown world in a cave and begins to wonder what has happened to him. Waikame discovers that he has no mouth, eyes or limbs, but can absorb elements into his stomach. He becomes discouraged upon realizing that he has been reincarnated as a slime. Great Sage informs Sad Makami that his predator skill allows him to adjust objects and analyze them within his body. He is intrigued by this ability and decides to test it. He discovers some substances called magicules, which are the building blocks of life found in all magical beings. He reasons that the cave must be full of it, so he asks Sage if he can absorb as many as possible and store it as healing potions in his stomach, to which Great Sage replies in affirmation. Upon realizing this, Makami begins to gobble as much as possible. His body, however, due to his lack of sight, he falls into a pool of water. And down he goes. He suddenly activates new skill that helps him stay afloat in water. And as he swims across a great speed, he hits the wall and realizes that he also has a pain nullification skill, which makes him unable to feel pain. While in awe of this ability, he suddenly hears a strange voice from within the cave and becomes scared, not knowing what it is. The strange entity offers to give him sight, but on the two conditions: that he must not fear him when he sees him, and that he must always come to talk to him. The lonely entity reveals that he has been sealed there for 300 years, and Makami wonders why. However, he skips the terms and conditions and immediately agrees. The entity tells Makami about the magic sense skill, and as he tries to use it, Makami suddenly begins to see at this moment that he knew he fucked up. He becomes terrified upon realizing that he's been talking to a dragon all along, but it's too late to go back on their agreement. The dragon introduces himself as the storm dragon Valdora, one of the 4 true dragons that exist in this world. Makami also reveals that he used to be a lonely loser before he got reborn as a slime. Then Velder tells him that he is the first he knows of to be reincarnated to that world, as the other worlders only come there occasionally, but not through reincarnation. Velder reveals that he was sealed with unlimited imprisonment by a powerful human hero, referred to as a summon, and since then, Velder has lived bored in the cave. Makami can relate to this, as he was so broke and ugly in his previous life that he couldn't get the girls. He then offers to become Valdora's friend, and the lonely dragon immediately jumps at the offer. After the two become friends, Makami feels bad that his friend has been sealed for 300 years, and Alder even breaks his heart further, revealing that he doesn't have up to 100 years left. Free has been losing a lot of magicules in the past 300 years. Upon hearing this, but Kami decides to try getting him out by using the Predator's skill to dissolve the unlimited punishment seal, but unfortunately he fails. So Braid Sage checks to see what can be done to get Valder out, and reveals that they would have to analyze the unlimited punishment in and out. But since Valdora can't use his powers, Makami offers to absorb gum and into his stomach, so he can properly analyze the unlimited punishment seal, while Valdora, on the other hand, tries to destroy it from the inside. Belter didn't believe what he had just heard, but Mikami calmed him and assured him that he would keep him quarantined in his stomach. Belter agrees to this, as this would give him a chance to be free again, and then suggests that they both give each other specific names, with which they will call themselves by. Kami names the dragon Valdora Tempest, and Valdora, on the other hand, names him Rimuru Tempest. Following this, Rimuru absorbs Valdora into its body, as they both planned. The news of Eldora's disappearance soon reaches the neighboring countries, and this puts them in a state of chaos as they begin to panic that they are prone to several attacks from monsters, which the dragon had been keeping off. However, Rimuru, unaware of what's going on outside, starts to go around the cave, searching for how to get out. And while at this 3 set, Kai's different monsters for fun, acquiring their abilities in the process. He eventually finds a gate, and Wayne thinks of how to open it. Some ugly dudes open the gate for the first time in 300 years and enter the cave to investigate the recent occurrence. Rimuru manages to escape their sight and exits the cave. On getting up, the jobless slime cruises around town, appreciating the sunlight he hasn't enjoyed in a while. Then a group of ugly-looking goblins suddenly appear and start to beg him not to destroy them, addressing him as the strong one. Rimuru is surprised and asks what they want, to which they reply that they sensed his strong aura and immediately rush down to take precautionary measures. Meanwhile, Rimuru is still clueless about what they mean. Shortly after, they take him to the goblin village, where he meets the elder of the goblins, the ugliest of them all. The elder reveals that their god suddenly disappeared recently, making Rimuru realize that he is referring to Valdora. The funny-looking elder further tells him that, since that occurrence, monsters in the area have been constantly harassing them, and they are too useless to fight back. The goblins beg Rimuru to help them fight the monsters, but Rimuru tells them that he is just an ordinary slime. However, he soon realizes that he has been emitting a terrible odor, which is making the goblins fear him. So he quickly absorbs it and asks what they would give to him in return if he decides to help them, to which they reply that they'd offer their loyalty to him as their master. Suddenly, a wolf monster appears in the goblin village, putting all the goblins in fear. However, Rimuru, feeling like a top tier, calms them and says that he has decided to help them fight the monsters. This is how the ugly loser became the leader of the goblins. Rimuru assembles all the goblins who can fight together, but is disappointed when he sees the so-called fighters. He tells them to take him to where the wounded goblins are, and on getting there, he is shocked at the severe damage the dire wolves have caused them. However, he decides to swallow one of them and then throw the healing potion he had previously stored in his body at him. Surprisingly, this works, as the wounded goblin completely gets healed. So Rimuru immediately does the same for the other goblins, and they are all healed. Seeing this, the other goblins instantly fall to their knees and worship him. Following that, Rimuru instructs that they build fences immediately to fortify the village's defenses. Meanwhile, the dumb wolf monsters, clueless of what's going on, plan to attack the goblin village and rule the forest. They immediately dash toward the goblin village, but soon observe that the goblin had built a fence around it with a little acting slime, like he knows what he is doing. The dire wolves feel insulted by this, and choose to attack anyway to show who the boss is. But as soon as they run toward the goblins, they are killed by the steel thread skill Rimuru already activated around the village. Upon seeing this, the alpha of the wolf becomes desperate to be Kai'd, so he immediately dashes toward Rimuru. But he shockingly gets entangled in Rimuru's sticky thread. He is dumb as fuck. Rimuru then gladly chops his head off the water blade scale. Rimuru then uses the predator skill and the mimic skill to analyze the wolf, and he immediately turns into a wolf too. To scare the other wolves away, he screams at them using the menace skill, and realizing that they have no chance against the goblins, the dire wolves immediately surrender, giving victory to the goblins. The next day, Rimuru gathers all the goblins and the Derwalls and pairs them up to foster unity among them. He tries to address them, but then he realizes they don't have names, so he decides to name them one after the other. Upon hearing this, they all become excited, making Rimuru wonder what the hell is making them excited about getting named. After naming the goblins, it's the Derwolf's turn to be named, and as Rimuru names the alpha's son, he immediately becomes weak, and his body structure collapses, entering a sleep mode instantly. Rimuru realizes that naming monsters consumes a lot of magicules, which results in fatigue. He fully recovers 3 days later, only to discover that the goblins have evolved into stronger beings, with the males becoming Hoboundlins, whereas the females only grew more melons. The dire wolves evolved into tempest wolves, with the new leader, Ranga, having a horn and the ability to cause whirlwinds at the shaking of its tail. He later gathers all of them together again, and gives them new rules they must abide by as a family. He then makes the Goblin Elder, Namian Rigurd, the Goblin Lord, and assigns different responsibilities to the other respective goblins. However, the team responsible for the clothing of the goblins, is too dumb to come up with great masterpieces. Wait a minute. As the buildings they manage to construct keep collapsing, and the clothes made are too revealing, Rigard suggests they employ the skills of a group of people called dwarves, who are skilled in construction and clothing. So Rimuru takes some folks along with him, and they immediately leave for Dworgen to meet the dwarves. After a while of journeying towards Dworgen, they decide to rest and catch their breath. They engage in some unnecessary conversation no one cares about, and Rimuru, feeling guilty that he killed Ranga's father, decides to ask him about it. However, Ranga that he doesn't hold a grudge against him and is rather grateful because Rimuru spared their lives even after defeating them in battle, and also gave them a new name. So he pledges his loyalty to him as his master. That night, Rimuru asks Gobda, one of the goblins who has previously visited Worgen, about what the city is like, and he speaks about the advanced technology system the city has. Also that the city's army is strong, and it even has a great king who is admired among the people. He also speaks about the dwarves, elves and humans dwelling there. Upon hearing elves, everything else Comptus speaks about falls on Death Eaters, as Rimuru can't help but fantasize about getting cultured with the beautiful elves of the city. The next day, on reaching the city, Rimuru and Gobda head towards the city gate, while the others stay to avoid drawing attention. However, some ugly losers decide to cause some trouble. Rimuru tries talking calmly at first, but seeing that he is just a mere slime, they don't listen. So Rimuru uses the mimic skill and transforms into a Tempest Star Wolf. However, the stupid dudes have got some balls and choose to attack anyway, with some clowns also trying to attack with fireballs. The best of their attacks doesn't affect Rimuru, shocking them then. Rimuru decides to show them what real power is, so he screams at them, using the menace skill, and everyone flees. The scene with their tails between their legs. The city guards soon appear to arrest Maru and Gompta for the damage caused, and as soon as they are thrown into jail, stupid Gompta falls asleep immediately, with Rimuru blaming himself for the wrong choice of god he made. Suddenly a guard comes, running to the cell to meet Captain Kato, and reports that a monster has appeared in the mine and wounded some guys. Upon hearing this, Rimuru immediately releases some healing potions he got from the plants he gobbled back in the cave, and tells the captain to administer these to the wounded men. A few moments later, Rimuru feels bored and decides to use Gobta for his little experiment. The guards later return in excitement to appreciate Rimuru, and they release him immediately, leaving Gobta to continue doing what he knows to do best. Following that, the captain tells Rimuru to say whatever he needs, and Rimuru tells him the reason he came to the city. Ito then introduces him to a skilled blacksmith named Kajin, his older brother, even though they share no other resemblance except for their shortness. Unfortunately, Kajin tells Ryamaru that his request would be impossible, as some crazy minister had ordered him to make 20 long swords in a limited time, and with limited resources. The Roo discovers that the resources Kajin needs are the same ones he gobbled up in the cave, so he spits out some that are even more refined than the ones Kajin needs, shocking everyone. Kajin offers to pay any amount he requests, but Rimuru tells him he only needs him to release some artisans to follow him back to the goblin village to teach the dumb goblins some craftsmanship skills. However, the only problem is that there is limited time. Rimuru immediately comes up with a brilliant idea, that he gobbles up the longsword already made and asks Great Sage to analyze it and replicate 20 of it. The artisans are shocked by this ability, and Kajin decides to throw a party for Rimuru. He initially declines, not until he hears that it would be a sus place for plot development at the party. Rimuru finally gets to enjoy what he couldn't have in his previous life, as he is welcomed by some ladies with huge balloons. A fortune teller asks him if he would like to climax with her balloons. She then tries to tell his fortune with her, and it is soon revealed that he will marry a lady who will give him 4 miserable-looking kids. However, while at this, they are disrupted by Minister Besta, the sadist, who gave Kaijin the arduous task, unaware that Kaijin had completed the task and sent the longs towards him. He asks him if he ought to be enjoying at such a time, trying to embarrass him. However, he is the one embarrassed when he realizes that Kaijin was able to handle the impossible request. To cover up his embarrassment, he picks on Rimuru, saying a monster shouldn't be allowed into such a great establishment. The bartender tries to appease the minister by serving him a glass of piss, but he grabs it and pours it on Rimuru, shocking everyone. Rimuru gets pissed, but decides not to let his short temper screw things up for Kajin in the bar. However, Kaijin doesn't mind being screwed and decides to make the lowly, ugly minister a little bit uglier by punching him in the face, shocking everyone. Kaijin beats up his ass, and when Rimuru fears what might happen to him since he just beat up a minister, Kaijin replies that he will be willing to follow him back to the Goblin Village as one of the artisans he needs. Upon hearing this, Rimuru becomes excited, but the guards soon arrest them and throw them in jail. Meanwhile, Gapta will soon beat the Guinness World Record, and Iso Kaijin won't stop telling them boring bedtime stories of how he used to serve as a soldier until he lost his job and chose to become a blacksmith. Kaijin and the others pledge their loyalty to Rimuru, and after that, they all fall asleep, with Rimuru still awake. About 5 minutes later, Gaba wakes up, and he is surprised to find himself tied upside down. But Rimuru encourages him to go back to sleep, as he and the others still have some things to do. Rimuru Kaijin and his accomplices are brought before the king for their hearing. Meanwhile, Minister Vesta deliberately exaggerates his injuries to make Kaijin's offense more grave. After hearing the incident from the mouth of a false witness, Hada-jin was sentenced to 20 years of labor in the mine, and his accomplices were served 10 years. However, the king intercepts and asks Kaijin if he would like to return to his rank as a soldier, but Kaijin tells him it's too late, as he has already sworn allegiance to his new master, Rimuru, and not even the king can order him otherwise. The king then changes their sentence and exiles them instead, never to return to Dwargan. After they left, the king tells Minister Vesta how disappointed he is in him, having spoiled their relationship with Rimuru, who provided the potion that healed the wounded workers at the mine earlier. He tells Vesta never to appear before him again, making Vesta depressed, as his desire has always been to please the king. Even though he became selfish along the way, Rimuru and his new friends get out of the city and start heading back for the Goblin Village, totally forgetting that Gapta is still in jail. Back of the palace, the king tells a secret agent to tail Rimuru and keep watch on his movements, saying, "It's quite unthinkable to have such a monster released." Several weeks after Rimuru and the dwarves have returned, the dwarves have begun teaching the goblins different skills across blacksmithing, armor-smithing, architecture, and craftsmanship. Their goal to build a new village is not looking promising. On the other side of town, the 3 ugly adventurers whom Rimuru met at the cave report back to their go-master, and they're immediately given a new task: to survey the forest for the activity of monsters. After 3 days, after leaving the office, the 3 lazy idiots are displeased with the new task, and while they make a fuss about it, like babies deny their toys, a Halloween girl who introduces herself as Shizu appears and asks if she can accompany them through the forest, and Aaron thoughtlessly agrees. However, just shortly after they returned, Rimuru was shocked to see several new goblins. About 500 of them would heard about him and had come to seek protection in the village. Rimuru initially planned to reject them, but Great Sage told him that the different races of monsters were seeking to gain dominance of the forest, which would likely make the unevolved goblins prone to attacks. So he accepted the new goblins and named them all. With a 3-day sleep following as usual, Rimuru goes around the village on his Tempest Wolf and finds Gapta teaching some ignorant folks, who obviously don't understand him, how to summon a Tempest Wolf. The day when Rimuru forgot him at Organ, Gompa somehow got lucky and managed to summon a Tempest Wolf, with which he then escaped. Elderagard now, the Goblin King, appears and reports some suspicious movements of humans around the forest, shocking Rimuru. Meanwhile, a bunch of untalented guild are being chased by ants, and while that almost get caught, Shizu suddenly turns around and prepares to attack as she unsheaths her sword and activates Rengoku's plain breathing. She roasts the insects in a second, shocking the other 3 useless dudes. However, an ant almost pounds on her, but Rimuru suddenly Ice-K, the ant with powerful black lighting. Upon seeing Shizu, Rimuru realizes that it's the same girl saw in the fortune-telling several weeks before. He also later realizes that the 3 guild masters are the people he met while leaving the cave. In the evening, Rimuru beats Shizu in a solitary place to shoot his shot, and Shizu accepts, allowing him to feel her plot. Rimuru reveals that he got reincarnated, and also learns that Shizu is a summon, reminding him of what Valdora told in the cave. Summons are powerful human weapons, meant to serve the purpose of their summoner, and magic is used to carve a curse into the summoned soul, so they don't ever defy their summoner. They continue talking for a while, as Rimuru shows her the memory of his previous life. However, she suddenly suffers a shock, and Rimuru wonders what happened, but she doesn't open up. Rimuru soon leaves with Kaijin, leaving Shizu to think about her past and how she was summoned by an unknown mage who cursed her with a demon, the fire spirit called Ifrit. Her summoner would then begin to control using her, Ifrit, which causes her body to move involuntarily like a puppet, and she would often kill people outside her will. She would